Well, the left's rhetoric against Supreme Court justices has been taken to a whole new level. There's a British guy named Simon Gwynn who claims to be a writer. He posted and then deleted 2 tweets in which he asked his followers if they would consider murdering Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. And then he issued this apology. Quote, the tweets are obviously pretty irresponsible, though I don't think they would be against Twitter's terms of service, only if you're a Democrat. FYI, I don't endorse murdering anyone, but don't think there's anything wrong with thought experiments. Let's welcome in now Congressman Matt Gaetz. Congressman, great to see you.
Well, thanks so much for having me, John.
Thought experiments, no big deal, right? Just fantasizing about murdering 2 of these conservative justices. Of course, this guy still has his Twitter feed, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Babylon Bee, too dangerous for Twitter. I thought things were changing.
Well, I think they may be. Sometimes progress in corporate America goes slow. I do think what we're witnessing right now, John, is not a leak or an instance of just, passive threats. I think we're witnessing an operation because there was a movement coming together of independent thinkers and conservatives and libertarians following the era of lockdowns and mandates and economic demise. And the thing that really risks the cohesion of the political movement that was going to carry Republicans' historic majorities in the midterms might be division over this issue of abortion, because both sides believe they're morally right. I am 100% pro-life. We have been praying for and championing an overturn of Roe for decades now. And so this has been long in the process. But the leak, the violence, the threats against judges, I think it's all married together. And I'm here to announce my support for the Cornyn-Coons legislation for protection for these justices so they're able to do their constitutional duty. And I would hope that Jerry Nadler and the House Judiciary Committee would put that legislation up for a markup very quickly in the House to show a unified front against these people who are insurrectionists against the very law itself.
Yeah, you would hope that there would be the same urgency for Nadler there as Nancy Pelosi and he expressed when they felt like Congress was such under attack from the American public as well. Back to your point, you could even, I think, include this whole disinformation business in this operation, if you want to call it that. I'll talk about that in a second. But here's Jen Psaki refusing to condemn these protests at the justices' houses.
Peaceful protest? No, peaceful protest is not extreme. I think our view here is that peaceful protest, there's a long history in the United States and the country of that. And we certainly encourage people to keep it peaceful and not resort to any level of violence.
But you got people like Elizabeth Warren who freaked out in front of the Supreme Court earlier this week, saying we're going to fight like hell and I'm madder than hell. This is the type, again, the language that is, when it's used by conservatives, is meant to mean, oh, they're inciting insurrection again. Here they go.
Yeah, if Elizabeth Warren's language was used by someone who was just on the grounds of the Capitol on January 6th, they'd probably be facing stiffer criminal penalties. And it's quite something to see her so angrily insist that she'd like to speak to the manager. But I do think that, the calls for visits to the homes of Supreme Court justices raise a different specter of threat than a peaceful protest at the Ellipse or at the Washington Mall or any other place, Main Street. If people want to walk down Main Street and protest, I guess so long as they're not breaking any other rule, they're entitled to do so. But when you invite people to the homes of Supreme Court justices, folks who have families, who have other folks around, you are really raising the whole notion of a physical threat against those people. And it's intimidation. It's not political intimidation. It's not jurisprudence being offered at a higher level. It is physical intimidation because they are angry that they're probably not going to be able to kill babies at the same rate that they were previously.
And sadly, it's not unprecedented either. We saw this before. Mitch McConnell had people show up at his house right outside the White House. We saw Rand Paul get attacked by protesters. And this, again, goes back to this comment, or this commentary, I guess, this discussion we're having about the public square and where this protest is appropriate and what is peaceful and what is not. So let's get to, let's talk about Nina Jankowicz now. You would like to see her testify right before the House. We want to learn more about the idea, where did this come from? And here's a letter that you signed with some of your colleagues in the House. Quote, the ability of Americans to engage in robust debate and a conversation is the foundation of American politics, and there is no place for a de facto ministry of truth in our government. So there's this, and also, again, talking about an operation here, you have Merrick Garland talking about this Department of Environmental Justice. Some of me thinks they're just trying to distract us because this stuff is so far out there.
Well, they have a very low view of our fellow Americans. They think that the American people require a government entity to decipher for us what is true and what is false. I have a very ambitious view of our fellow Americans. I actually think we can encounter disinformation and we can encounter lies and we can actually sort through them and arrive at conclusions based on comparing sources and claims versus warrants. Here you have a circumstance where the only thing the American people really know about Nina Jankowicz is what we see from her bizarre TikTok videos. Right. And we also know that she's peddled in disinformation by embracing the Steele dossier, that she was one of the people saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. So her experience in disinformation seems to be experience in peddling it, not combating it. And I would think Nina would want the opportunity to come before the House Judiciary Committee and share her vision on how she intends to define truth for the American people. We'll obviously have questions for her, but wouldn't a congressional hearing be a more appropriate way to learn about this woman than by watching these bizarre TikTok videos?
Yeah, well, she's no shrinking violet. We play the B-roll. I know it's somewhat distracting, but to your point, I mean, here's a specific comment she made previously about critical race theory, and I would imagine something like this would come up in the congressional testimony or hearing. Here she is.
Critical race theory has become one of those hot button issues that the Republicans and other, disinformers who are engaged in disinformation for profit, frankly, there are plenty of, media outlets that are making money off of this too, have seized on.
Well, it's news because it actually was one of the issues that turned the election in Virginia. And again, this is, like you said, the administration not having a lot of confidence in the people that put them in office, the American public.
Yeah, I think she's talking about us, John. I mean, when she says Republicans and others that are, out there, sharing things with people, the problem for Nina Jankowicz and other people on the left is that we actually continue to be proven right. The Wuhan lab leak theory is more accepted today than when we initially presented it. The Steele dossier is less accepted today than when Nina Jankowicz was out backing it. The Russia disinformation theory on the Hunter Biden laptop has largely been debunked and deconstructed. So, rather than just saying, well, that's disinformation, that comes from Newsmax, that comes from Republicans, you shouldn't listen to it. Why shouldn't we be intellectual enough and honest enough and willing to actually present ideas, debate them, discuss them? That's what Jim Jordan and my colleagues on the Judiciary Committee and I have invited Nina Jankowicz to do. If she's got a case to make that Republicans never tell the truth and only Democrats tell the truth, well, it's sort of bizarre, but let's test that through rigorous questions, not through sort of social media posts that I think are intended more for their viral nature than to actually enhance the national discussion around truth and honesty and information the public needs.
I do think, going back to your idea of this operation, when you hear Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton a couple weeks before this Ministry of Information is announced, you have to wonder if it was a coordinated media campaign to kind of spread the idea first and then introduce it to the American public next, and then we're supposed to accept it like it's no big deal. Very problematic, to say the least. And I just wonder, if they did this to throw us off the real issues at the border and some of the other things that the DOJ really should be focused more on.
Well, and this is going to manifest in dangerous ways. When entities like Newsmax, for example, we've been trying to get Newsmax on in the Capitol so we can get a better quality of news when we're performing our duties. And you have a lot of these bureaucracies that say, oh, no, we're going to stand in the way of that. We also see it through the enforcement of antitrust, where it's lax to favor big tech so long as big tech is able to do the bidding of the political left in America. So this isn't just kind of a funny little board for a lady to go give speeches. They're actually real world impacts about how information is shared with the American people. And you know what, John? It's okay for the American people to be nosy, to want to do discovery and analysis and review. What are we supposed to just take the Biden government certified version of the facts and adhere to that?
It's why it's so important that people know what they have the information they have a right to, and why it's important that you're getting Hunter Biden's laptop enter into the official congressional record. This becomes public information and really immutable if folks are just empowered enough to go there and find the information for themselves. This is the stuff that the media used to do once upon a time, actually investigate stuff and want to get people thrown out of office if they were abusing their power. But now it's just a partisan game, unfortunately. Congressman Gaetz, always great to talk to you, and it was great to see you at Mar-a-Lago on Wednesday night. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, John. Always good to be with my fellow Florida man.